This is your honorable, respectful, fighting man, Katie Trey, on the CCP podcast. John, thank you. As for the other one, you're nothing more than a Boy Scout.
What is happening, friends of CCP Podcasting? Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Bell. I'm Chris Page, and that's John Cable. John, we got a good one today, brother. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm a little frigid in the north now, but, you know, I'll get back to Florida soon.
I know, man, the Sunshine State. You can never go wrong, brother. It stays warm and hot, between warm and hot all the time. And it's very interesting that the climate is what it is because it's very eerily similar. Well, maybe not as similar. It's a little bit hotter down there. We're going back down to Australia today, man. I'm really looking forward to this. You and I have drawn such a connection to Riot City Wrestling and the product that they put out on a monthly basis, and we're rolling into Fringe Mania for them coming up this weekend, as a matter of fact, when the show drops. I could not be happier to bring on to the show lead announcer for Riot City Wrestling, the one, the only, Mr. Angus Dacey. Mr. Angus, man, how are you, brother?
Hey, how's it going, guys? I'm doing well. I'm doing really well on this Sunday morning for me, Saturday night for you guys. I've got my coffee here. I'm caffeinated. I'm ready to talk about Riot City Wrestling.
Great, man. Cup. This is
yeah, you like it?
Yeah, look, he's rocking the Nintendo mug, John. Did you see that?
I do.
And also, I'm rocking the Riot City Wrestling merchandise as well.
Yes, sir.
I'm a company guy.
Check the links down below. You'll find direct access to get your own Riot City Wrestling t-shirt, courtesy of Riot City Wrestling. This is going to be fun, man. We've had such a great time talking to Red Shaw and talking to Katie Trey and really getting the opportunity to follow the product that you guys have going on down there. We've been saying since stumbling across Riot City off rip that don't sleep on Australian product. And we mean that wholeheartedly because there's so much going on down there and the level of talent that's going on down there. Even this weekend alone, the WWE was down there with Elimination Chamber. There's a lot that I want to talk about that when we get to it, for sure, because I saw some familiar faces.
Oh yeah.
And I honestly thought that, when I was watching it back this weekend, earlier this morning, I only wanted to watch one match, and I think we all know who that had to do with, and that was Rhea Ripley. And to hear Riot City get a plug, and to hear Chris and Matt
how great was that?
I was watching it with my better half, and I told him, we're just watching one match. I promise we're not watching the whole fucking show. We're just going to watch one match. I want to hear the reaction. I want to see it. I want to hear it. When I heard RCW get the name drop, and I heard the Bassos get the name drop, I look over and I went, fucking right. That right there is huge. And
it was incredible. I didn't see the show live, but I saw people mentioning, hey, they plug RCW, so I was like, all right, I gotta go check this out. So I went back and I found the clip of them, and I got chills. I got actual chills because, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest professional wrestler in this country, or professional wrestlers, are Chris and Matt Basso. They're the best, and they don't get the credit they deserve. Maybe because we're in Adelaide, and I guess in Australia, in the terms of the state hierarchy. Victoria, New South Wales, because they've got the big population centres, they get all the press, they get all the attention. In Adelaide, we're nestled, down the bottom. But the stuff these guys do and the people they've trained and the contributions they've made are just, you cannot overstate how important these guys are.
Absolutely. I thought that, to me, and again, we'll get into it. I don't mean to start off the top of that, but it's such if you work for anything in the industry, right? And let's take the Bassos for an example. I know that they've been busting ass with Riot City for 17 years, 18 years, give or take, maybe a little bit more, if I'm not mistaken. That's the payoff. That right there, that acknowledgement is so huge. And I say that because when you think about all the talent that's being trained right now, or the guys and girls that we're seeing right now, Delta Brady as an example, Dean Brady, the Red Shaws, the Katie Treys, the Party Guys, Old Guard. I mean, you got all of these tremendous talents, and the one common denominator between it all is the Bassos.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. The young talent that we've got, like, just to think about Snacks, Vinny, Delta, these guys, just the three I'm just mentioning off the top of my head, they're all under the age of 25. Like,
well, and we just saw the show with the new talent coming out of the academy too. Like, there's still so many new young guys that haven't even made it into the roster yet that are coming.
Yeah. So we recently, back in, I think it was July last year, we did a big tryout intake. And I've been with RCW for about 5 years now, so I've seen a lot of tryouts. I've seen a lot of guys come in, and look, not to disrespect any of the past tryouts, but that you get maybe a dozen people, and maybe 2 of them will stick around, and the other 10 will just disappear, and you'll never see or hear from them again. We did a tryout in July, and pretty much all but like 2, I think, left. Left. So we got maybe 95% of the people from that tryout still there. They're exceptional. These guys are athletic. They get it quickly. The future is set in Riot City Wrestling. Like, they're young too. It's just it's very exciting times. And you haven't even seen these guys make it to TV yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. The last show we watched a couple weeks ago was just the Academy show. Where they were showcasing the new talent that had just graduated, and it was a really great show. And to see that the level of talent coming out of the training group there that the Bassos are running is incredible. These guys have never been on TV before. They've never had matches in front of big fan audiences, and yet this is the level of talent that's coming out of them. And it isn't just the basic wrestling skills. You guys down there are training TV time and promo work and character development, and you guys are doing an all-around package on training down there. It's impressive.
Oh, it's great. I go, because I film a lot of the promos and do a lot of the editing for Riot City Wrestling. So I'll go down there on a training night, and I'll film a promo for someone, and I'll stick around and I'll watch the training. And just the dedication and the variety, because, to peel back the curtain a bit, we train 4 or 5 nights a week now. Like, it used to be 3 nights, but now we've really bumped it up.
Yeah, that's what Katie was talking about.
Yeah, right. So, Mike Boomer, he trains on a Monday, and he trains the real fundamental, mat-based technical grappling style. And then you might get, Nick Armstrong, who trains on a Tuesday. And he does the what we call the rookie class, or the fundamentals. Right. And then you'll get Chris Basso or Zach Sabbath on a Wednesday, and they'll go through the real pro stuff, the stuff that if you've been training for a year or so and you've really got the fundamentals, you'll come and learn all the cool moves and the sequences and stuff. And then there's a supplementary class on a Thursday for rookies as well that the Bradys do. And then on a Friday you get character and promo work with Katie Trey and Party Guy Ty. It's a fantastic smorgasbord of stuff you get.
And it's not limiting your talent. Everybody is learning from veterans, we learned from Katie Trey, who's been in the game 10 years. Something that I realized or I knew. So it's not like these guys and girls are being taught by just anybody. There's people that have been through the system there as well. And to me, that's a real fucking beautiful thing, because you're laying the groundwork for the future of Australian wrestling. And
that's right. And what's that going to look like? I mean, we had WWE down yesterday for Elimination Chamber, and I don't know if you guys were on social media, but they did they put up a little video of a tryout that happened down here.
Yeah,
and there was some very familiar faces in there.
I was very excited when I saw that.
Yeah, it made me happy. It really did.
It was good to see the Adelaide representation, because I think we had obviously Delta was in that video, Perea, you can see them there, to like 3 people, trained by RCW. But yeah, like I think in terms of the talent coming through, that you need that though to sustain a professional wrestling organization. You need a constant influx of new people. You can't get too stagnant with the guys you've got and then never introduce new people, and just have the same people wrestling the same people over again, because the fans get tired of that. They do.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about how you got started with Riot City.
Oh,
what does that look
good.
like? You've been involved with the product for about 5 years. What drew you in, and how does that come about? What's that look like?
Well, okay, so that's a bit of an interesting story, because I originally, about 5 years ago, I was living in Queensland, and I had nothing to do with wrestling at all. I was a fan of wrestling, but I wasn't involved in the scene. Like, I go to some local indie shows up there. I remember Will Ospreay came down to one of my indies once, and I went to see him, and that was awesome. But then I moved down to Adelaide at the end of 2018, start of 2019, because I had some friends who I met, on the internet years ago, and one of them lived in Adelaide, and another one from Sydney had just moved to Adelaide. So I was like, oh man, it'd be great, because I was finishing university at the time. And I was like, man, I need a scenery change. Adelaide sounds like the perfect place to go. So anyway, I moved down here. I get set up, and we start going to like the indies. So I started going to Wrestle Rampage to start with, because at that time they had a real internet presence. Like, they were the cool indie to go to in Adelaide. There was Bronson Reed, Jonah Rock. It was like, you got to see this guy. He's amazing. And they had AJ Istria, and yeah, I loved Wrestle Rampage, but then I went to a Riot City Wrestling show at the old HQ venue. It was called Reanimated 14. It was like 2019, and I was blown away, like, by the level of production at this show. Like, I don't know if you guys have checked that one out on YouTube. It was main evented by the Pereira and the Armstrongs in a tag match. It was a great match, and I was like, wow. First of all, the production is insane. Secondly, the wrestling is insane. How do I get involved in this? And it turned out that we knew a guy who was also going to these shows, who I think he got some kind of inheritance from like a dead relative or something, and he started his own wrestling company, if you can call it a company. He didn't have like a ring or anything. He just like borrowed other companies' rings. It was called Iron Fist Pro Wrestling. I don't know if you've heard about that one in your journey. No, okay, yeah, it was very short-lived, but basically what it was he partnered initially with Wrestle Rampage to do a show that brought over Hideki Suzuki from Japan to wrestle Jonah Rock, Bronson Reed, and it was a decent success. But then he wanted to do another show, and I think he wanted to bring over Shun Skywalker from DDT, but it became a bit of a shit show and everything. Anyway, we got talking to him, and he's like, oh, I need some guys to help me out with social media. Do you guys want to help, manage my Instagram? And we're like, yeah, all right, we'll post some GIFs and things. Anyway, so then he ran a second show at ACW, at their academy, and it went atrociously, and it drew like 30 people or something, and he couldn't afford to pay anyone, and it was a big shit show. So I'm like, okay, all right, what's this? I don't know if I want to be associated with this guy. Anyway, and then he was like, okay, for the third show, I've hit up Riot City Wrestling, and I'm gonna run it out of their academy. And we're like, okay, all right. So, and he was gonna bring over Konosuke Takeshita to wrestle Chris Basso, which was
which would have been a fire fight.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if that match happened? So anyway, so then he was going to run a Riot City Wrestling, and we're like, okay, cool. So he's booking the Pereira, he's booking Chris Basso, some guys, from RCW, obviously. So Andrew and myself, Carmine Laguzio and myself, we were like, all right, let's, hit them up and see if they want to film promos. So, we asked them, and we filmed some stuff. So there's a Pereira promo we filmed with them. And we were going to film a Chris Basso promo, but he just ran out of time. But we were, communicating with him the whole time. And at that time, they had just lost their social media guys and their, video editors. So we go to RCW, the show happens, it's a disaster. The guy who was running Iron Fist pulled out of the show. So Riot City Wrestling ended up turning it into an RCW show, which was kind of crazy. And after the show, Chris Basso comes up to us and he's like,
Right.
And then it seemed like it fell right in your lap, right time, right place.
Then we took a meeting with him and Jet Armstrong, who was like the social media manager at the time, and and then it just became like, okay, we'll do promos, we'll do backstage interviews, we'll do anything else, and then eventually the guy who was editing the shows decided he didn't want to do it anymore. So then I became the guy who edited the shows, and I've still been editing all the shows for the last 5 years.
Wait, so you're the reason that the production looks the way it does?
Well, not just me, but I do the video editing. I do the graphics, and I do all that stuff.
Yeah, that's what I meant. You're the reason that the product that we get looks the way you, sir, Mr. Dacey, are the reason that we were drawn into the show in the first place. It was the production value when we saw our first show. It was one of the first things we talked about. The very first intro video that we ever saw. We were like, oh, this production value is way better than some of the other indies. This has got me interested in actually watching the show. That is a very, very good
point, John. That is 100% correct now that you bring it up. The opening...
And I think you said it was at the gates, the ladder match one?
It was the Collider.
The Collider ladder match.
Can I be honest? That show is one of my worst edits that I ever did, because I don't know what happened, but the hard cam was completely out of focus that entire show. So I had to rely...
It sold the chaos of the Collider so well to have it produced the way it was. It was like unintentional genius, but it was perfect for the product, and it was the thing that drew us to the product in the first place.
I know the guys on Cage Match ripped me apart for that one, so.
Well, they can suck it because it's perfect.
But yeah, I think for me it was like it was like when I started doing the shows, it was a long process to edit. Like, I had no idea how to edit a wrestling show. I was like, I guess you do it like this. You sync all the clips up and you pause it every time you want to make a cut. But over time, I've developed a really kind of clean workflow for it. So, I edit all the RCW shows. I do the ACW shows as well. Like, I do their big Estonian hall shows. So we had one just recently with Redshaw. He won the title off Mr. Cliff.
He sure did.
Which is quite fun. So I'm in the process of finalizing the edit on that. But it's not just editing the shows; it's also getting them up in a quick time frame. Because typically we do a Saturday show. I like to get those shows up by no later than the following Friday. Like, give myself 6 days, from the show happens to it's on the internet. Because the half-life of a professional wrestling match is tiny, right? There's so much wrestling. You have to get it up and out there as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned that there's so much wrestling, and a lot of times when we talk to people, we talk about that, how the new era of the industry is this wide open, wild west of streaming services, and anybody can put a show up anywhere and draw attention to it. And yet that still leaves, some shows are going to be good and some shows aren't, and some talent is worth it and some talent isn't. But you guys have seemed in your area, you guys have seemed to develop such a good pool of talent that is doing some tremendous things. And knowing that you guys are all working together as a territory to kind of produce that is really an inspiration to us and to other maybe territories, I guess, to continue that kind of model. Because I really think that one of the golden eras of wrestling was when we were in the territory wars, and we're seeing that resurgence now over mainstream product. And you guys are absolutely killing it for that.
It feels like that, actually. I'd say the culture right now, as far as South Australia goes, it's really good. I go to Wrestle Rampage shows, I go to ACW shows, I go to the odd PWSA show, and it's always a positive locker room vibe, locker room atmosphere, and it's usually it's like you see the same people working multiple shows. Let's say I go to an RCW show, an ACW show, and a PWSA show. I'm going to see Mr. Cliff at all three. I'm going to see Redshaw at all three. I'm going to see Down Under at all three. You know, it's just it's this sense of like, oh, we're our own company. We don't associate with the other. That doesn't really exist anymore because it can't really exist. I don't think, and it's great for our guys because you know they can work, you know, 4 companies in a month potentially. That's almost like once a week. So it's a great opportunity. I think last year Mr. Cliff worked like 50 matches or something.
Katie was saying his workload last year was ridiculous, and I gotta say, you guys pulling 50, 60, 70 matches in a year is kind of crazy.
Oh yeah. I think I was looking this up just yesterday because I was curious about Delta, right? Because you know she's probably not long for the Australian wrestling scene, and I was like, okay, so she debuted in 2020 at the end of 2020, started 2021. How many matches has she had? She's had 118 matches already.
It's insane.
Like 118 matches in 3 years. That is an insane, and that's 2 of those years were COVID years as well. So you know,
so there was limited amount. So realistically, like a year and a half, most of those matches probably.
Oh, it's unreal. Like, you know, I was looking back at my project files for the year of 2022, and I think I edited like 26 events that year or something, which is just crazy. Like once every 2 weeks, I had something going on. So
nuts.
It's very busy, but you know, we love it, right? And that's why we do it.
Exactly. That's it's kind of like our platform where we were talking a little bit before we took the air. We started looking at WWF stuff, and all of a sudden, like, I don't know, I got tired of seeing the old, and I was necessarily tired of seeing the classics, because classics was get us to today, but the independent scene.
Yeah.
Like, I started really wanting to dive into that, and that's exactly how we stumbled across Riot City, and it's become like destination television for our channels and
for our whole
audience. And the community that we build on a weekly basis, and it's the level of talent, the work ethic that goes in, like, and you can tell that these guys and gals care, and part of that is where you have a much bigger piece to that story because you're the guy that's painting the picture for the viewer as we're watching. You talk about how you got into, by chance, you stumble into the editing aspect of it. How does that translate into in front of the camera and getting on commentary? And at what point in time did that start for you?
Yeah, that's interesting actually, because when I first got started, it was not just me, but Andrew. So Carmine Laguzio is his name. He does RCW Blast with me, if you've seen him around. But yeah, he and I have been like best friends for like 10 plus years. So when we came into RCW together, there was like a sort of pact we made where we're like, we don't want to become egomaniacs. We don't want to become sort of like, we don't want to do this for ourselves. We want to do this for the others, right? So our goal was never to get on camera. It was just to be, producing stuff for the wrestlers, promo videos, entrance videos, anything, right? And we're like, because this is what always happens in wrestling. Someone will come in, there'll be like a video editor or a commentator or something, and then in a few months they're a manager, or they're training to be a wrestler, or they're doing something like that, and then it becomes all about them. And I'm like, I don't want to make it about me. So yeah, that was like never the intention. But what happened was, it was, I think, 2021. So we'd been in RCW for over 2 years at that point. And we had Havoc just won the title. He just won the RCW championship. And we were meant to do like a promo or like a sit down interview with him. And the Sean Fuster, who was the commentator at the time, he couldn't make it down. Andy Anderson, he couldn't make it down. It was just Carmine and myself there, and we're like, okay, well, one of us has to probably just step in and do like an interview with Havoc because no one else is here to do it. So Andrew was like, I'll do it. So that was where Carmine Laguzio kind of came from, and the name Carmine Laguzio actually comes from, there's a show on Netflix called I Think You Should Leave. It's like a Tim Robinson sketch comedy show. And I think it's season 2, episode 1, he does like a parody of that show, Impractical Jokers. And the character he plays in that sketch is called Carmine Laguzio. And I think it had just come out like at that time that we were filming the promo. Like I think we might have been watching it the night before or something, and so it was like fresh in our brain, and we're like, all right, you're Carmine Laguzio. So anyway, he did a sit down interview with Havoc, and it was it was pretty good and it was fine, and we're like, all right, well that's probably the end of that. But then it turned out we needed him for more stuff, and this always kind of happens. You've got a resource now. You've got an established kind of guy. It's like, okay, we'll keep using Carmine Laguzio for things. Anyway, so then that was how he got involved. I was an on-screen character, so he was doing on-screen stuff before me. But then it was just after the Fringe 2022, and Sean Fuster had decided that I think he'd done like 6 or 7 years as the lead commentator at RCW, and he'd had enough of that. I think he wanted to step back. So Chris Basso, he messages me at like the day after the Fringe happens. He's like, "Oh, keep this on the down low, but Sean is retiring from RCW. How would you like to do commentary?" And I'm like, "Okay, I've never done it before. I've done some like voiceover work. I've done some like I did some retrospective videos for RCW, at that time, but I'd never done any like character stuff."
But you knew the product though, and
yeah,
you knew that.
exactly.
Yes.
That's exactly it. I knew the product so well because I'd been editing all the shows. I knew all the stories, and I'm like, I'll give it a go. And then the first show I did, I was not great. Like I didn't get the timing down, the cadence down, because commentary, if you've said you've done it before, it's like very much you have to time what you're saying to the moves. You can't get too caught up in something, because if you start going in a long-winded story or a long-winded like anecdote,
you
or
get
something,
cut off. Everything, yeah. There's a lot.
Everything has to be like short, sharp, and you have to catch the moves as they go. So it took me a little bit to get that down. I had Paul Roberts with me, who's been doing commentary in Adelaide for like, I don't know, 10, 15 years or something. So he's pretty good at just kind of steering, or like, I don't want to say he's good at ignoring me, but he's good at like, if I'm talking bullshit, he just won't respond to me and he'll keep going. So that was great. But yeah, that's sort of how that came about. It was just becoming accustomed to the idea that maybe I would have to get called upon to become a on-screen character. And then Andrew and I were like, well, we're doing this stuff, so let's what else can we do? So then we came up with the idea for RCW Blast, which was like a retrospective show where we could talk about like the history of Riot City, because Kim and I are very passionate about it. In fact, just behind me, back there, I've got hold on. I've got tons of these hard drives, right, that have old shows on them. So this has 2012 to 2013 on it. So this has like, I've got 20 years of wrestling history back there to pull upon.
Oh, don't tease me with a good time.
Yeah, I was like,
Don't do that.
there's so much footage there. There's so many content things.
Oh yeah, but that was it, right? Because it was only I was the only one watching them, so I'm like, okay, we've got to get this stuff up on the internet. So that's where the RCW Vault came from. Was because we were like, well, how can we get this out there? And it's like, who's going to want to pay for a 20-year-old wrestling show that has a bunch of like nobodies on it, from years ago that no one remembers, except for like maybe a couple of guys. But it was also like, well, I want to get the stuff out there so people can see it. So that's where we came up with the Vault. So yeah, I know you didn't ask about that, but anyway.
No.
That's great. That's things that we don't even know about that you're doing in the background, that as fans of your product and content creators in general, that's the interesting thing, that's why we want you on the show. Things about Riot City that very few other people do, and a lot of people don't realize that working the table, especially, the history of the business is your archive, and you have to know so many things to work that table appropriately and to tell the story the way that you guys do, and to pull out all of the little known facts about this meeting or that meeting or when this thing happened before. Like you are a reservoir of knowledge for the company, and being on the table, that I can understand why Basso would call you up for that.
Yeah, and that was what I was very keen on at first, was just, I'd look at the matches and I'd go, okay, how many times has this guy wrestled that guy? What's the head-to-head, whatever ranking? How many titles has this guy won? What has this guy done interesting? But and then like I would actually write all this stuff down, but over time I'd be able to like memorize it. So I could say,
because it's what you're doing
it's
all
repetition.
day.
It's constantly drawing back on it. I mean, it's tremendous to have that knowledge trap up here to be able to look back on. And truly, it's a piece of, again, it's like I say, you paint the picture while we're watching the show. And every aspect of the business is important. Like, everybody's role in the business it's specific, and without it, it's very difficult to have what would be called a good show, quote unquote, right? And the way that you guys on the table, your interactions, you're your own character essentially. On the show, and you're your own personality, and it constantly evolves. It's beautiful to see, and it is, John's right, it's all a piece of a much bigger puzzle, and if one key ingredient's off or one key thing's off, it can throw the whole system out of whack. And you guys have made some and we haven't even seen it all. Like, we stumbled across Riot City, and boom, we're not missing it. It's just where it's at with us.
That's what goes on all the time.
I got a funny story for you real quick. Can I tell you about the time Riot City made John Cable cry on the live stream?
No, tell me about this.
Oh, John.
Please, I need to hear this now. I need to hear this.
This was great.
I'll tell him.
No. Nay. I got this. You can follow up in just a second. You're talking about your best friend of 10 years. We're about 10 to 15.
Yeah.
So we're watching the show back, and I think it was the show after the Collider match. It's the show that Purgatory broke up, if that rings any bells.
Oh, yeah.
So John fell in love with Purgatory in that Collider match. No problem, right? I thought the whole fucking match was
a month before.
Yes. I thought the match was great.
Terrible time to fall in love.
But see, now we had also went back and watched another show prior to that had
the one prior to the Collider. So I had 2 months worth of shows to fall in love with Purgatory and really enjoy the character work and get involved. And then came the match with Ein, and everything just fell apart.
Hang on. So we're watching this. The I match. Sorry, Lestrange. And John's just like, he's not losing this match. We're on a live show. We've probably got 15 or 20 people in our chat room, and they're watching this with us. And he's watching this thing. Lestrange gets beat, and like, he says nothing for 2 minutes.
I was just in shock. I was like,
the very next match is Mickey Fortune and Amber. And
yes, it was.
It's over, and like, and I'm fucking with him at this point. I'm like, watch,
in
bro.
12 seconds.
They hear you. They hear you cheering for him, John, and they hear how much you're trying to put over Purgatory. Listen, you're such a bad influence that they're seeing you, and they're gonna end them tonight. It's gonna fucking happen now. And then she gets beaten in like 12 seconds. Like, legit, he starts to cry on stream. In
oh no!
Chat. And I say that because, and we said it to Katie Trey. I say that because if you can make a grown man cry on the third episode of the program,
that's not that hard to make me cry. But
if you can make a grown man cry on your third episode of watching something back and what is an episodic television, it's once a month, but it's episodic television once a month.
It is episodic,
you only had 3 episodes to hook me that hard that I was that invested. That's the impact.
Now let's fast forward. It wasn't the I think it was Reanimated. We get the real quick Baron promo. And this dude is up, and he's like, oh, here we go.
But it was just a tease because you don't get to see anything else. It was just
he took the mask off
the mask.
Yes.
Yeah. But you didn't see anything. You just saw that piece.
I don't know if you shot that or who shot that or whose idea it was.
I didn't shoot that. I don't actually know who shot that.
It was a fantastic promo. It was the best 15, 20 seconds on the show that didn't have any speaking. It just was him taking the mask off.
Yeah, just like, we cut to commercial, didn't we? We're like that.
That was the end of the show. That was literally the end of the show.
No, it wasn't. It was midways through the show. It was like midways through. They cut to something.
Yeah, else. I think it was like, all right, we gotta take a quick.
After that.
a quick break. Yeah, because then we had what did we have after that? That was like Snacks and that was Vinny and Dean Brady. I think was after that.
Yeah, that was
That was a
another
good match.
good fucking tag team match right there. That was
really good. You guys have nailed it on all the shows in the last several months. Everything is just built on itself so well, and we are absolutely hooked on it.
I'll tell you. I'll give you 3 of the moments that made me in recent history really quite like that. My 3 big reactions as someone who works there, but that turned me into a fan as well. Like it brings the fan out of me. The first one, and these are all pretty much involving the same people, unfortunately. So, but yeah, you'll see a theme here. The first one was when World Class Egos, which was Chris Basso and Matt Hayter, when they won the tag titles. That was at Reanimated 2020, so just like 2 months before COVID. That one, I got chills when that happened because we didn't think it was going to happen. Everyone was like, you've got to win the titles. You guys have to win the titles because they had like this sort of bromance angle going on at that time. Like Matt Hayter was a heel, but then he turned face and him and Chris Basso became life partners and everything. And they won the tag titles off Gods and Monsters, who were like a really strong tag team at the time. Matt Basso and Brody Marshall. Who had a legendary run as a tag team, and that was a great moment. Like that was like honestly, we had like 500 people in the Latvian Hall, which was our main venue we used to run. Blew the roof off the place. The other one was when Matt Hayter beat Rocky Monero for the RCW title, and that was at the Fringe 2021, and we had like almost 700 people in the venue for that one. And I was like filming. I was roaming camera for that one, so I was ringside. And when like because Rocky had the title for like 666 days. It was like the worst reign ever because he just kept beating everyone, and every show ended with him beating up someone. It was really depressing. Like he beat Redshaw and Baron and ended their undefeated streaks.
Oh,
like that's yeah, right back to back.
I mean, Rocky is a legend for that reason.
He is, but when you live through it, it was like, and this was also COVID too, so you're like, there is no hope in the world. But it worked out well because Hayter beat him at the Fringe. And then, obviously, when Matt Basso came back from cancer at the Fringe was a huge moment. And actually, that was great for me because my brother, who just moved to Adelaide, him and I were filming that show, like we were the roaming camera, and it was just, I don't know, it's something about him being there with me for this big moment was like kind of nice because he was, because it's like, Matt Bass was coming back, and it was a sentimental moment, and my brother's right there filming with me. It was just nice,
Wrestling has a way of bringing people together. That's one of the things that we say on our channels all the time, and that right there is it's a moment that you can have with your brother. And how many opportunities can you say that you can have that? There's only one of those returns. You know what I mean? Like
that was insane.
Because
we honestly didn't think he was going to come back. Like it was like there was a good chance Matt Basso wouldn't come back. I remember one time, like, when he started chemo, I saw him and I was like, this is not the same guy. Because, he had a big beard and long hair. And then, you see him with, like, no facial hair and, like, he's shaved his head. And it's like, wow, that's Matt Basso. And then he came back, in incredible shape. Yeah.
Bigger, badder, stronger, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the way to be. You just touched on it with Fringe Mania. That's coming up. That's obviously when this show drops. It's the weekend of this drop. You're watching this on a Friday here in the States on YouTube. That show's going on probably right now over on Riot City's page. Yeah. So if you don't want to wait for us, I suggest you go on over to their YouTube page and take a peek if it's live now, or it will be in the next 7 days.
No, it'll be live the following Friday.
The next 7 days you'll be able to take a peek. That means, John, we're watching it 9 days after. So
I
know. It's the lineup. I haven't even seen all of it. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I've seen the match announcements that have come out. I mean, you got Matt Basso and Delta. And we touched on Delta earlier.
It's going to be crazy.
That we might have some news about Delta, maybe. I don't know.
We'll see.
Before that match. I'm not sure. I haven't been told anything, but just judging by the fact that she was at a WWE tryout, and I'm not spoiling anything because it was all on social media. I've been saying for a while that I think she's not
We have
long
to.
for the athlete.
We have to.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think it's just when everyone has that consensus, you've got someone who's going to make it big.
And
Well,
she
she's
is.
one of those talents that is a total package. She worked when her and Fortune had that match to unify the title. One of the things that I couldn't get over was I wasn't watching a women's wrestling match. I was watching a wrestling match. Period.
Yep.
It didn't matter who was in the ring. I was watching professional wrestlers do what they do best. And to see them both put in so much effort and do that match so well, have such a great build towards it and everything that went into that matchup, and to see you guys make the decision that you made over the titles, all of it was perfect. I don't know that it could have been told any better than it was.
And how about this? For 18 years or whatever that we had the RCW championship, taking the decision to retire the main championship of the company and start a new lineage with her as the first champion. Like, that was a bold decision to make, right? Like, that was a
100%.
really bold.
Yeah.
To say this is the like hard cut, and now we are in a new era with her as the first champion of a new title that is being created just for her. Crazy. So I guess it's like, it's going to be really like interesting to see what the reaction is, because it's almost like you kind of have to come see her now, because how long is she going to be around for?
You don't know. Like, I'm going to keep it real. When I saw Delta, again, go back to the Collider match, because that's where we were introduced initially live. We saw Delta. Another piece of what drew us in was the Delta story. I forget. I think she was in there with Down Under that night. It may not have been Down Under. Is Katie?
I think she came out to run her mouth at Katie that night.
But then somebody
got interested in the build for the Katie.
Somebody
Delta
came
match.
out and had an open fight, and nobody wanted to fight him. Delta ended up taking the match, and Katie was out on the floor. I forget who.
Yeah, that was Big Willie Gibson.
Okay,
he's from Wrecking Ball Wilson.
Wrecking Ball.
He's from Wrestling.
That's right, Wrecking Ball.
He's, by the way, I love that guy so much. He's the best. He just recently injured his knee in a match against Matt Hayter, hopefully he's on the mend.
Well, shout out to Wrecking Ball. We hope that you get cleared quickly and get back into the ring. Sorry, I botched you.
Big time.
But what I'll say is, like, we got the Delta was another thing that drew me in. So when we saw that Delta's in line for Katie Trey, and keep in mind this is our first interaction. We see Katie Trey coming out celebrating 300 days as a dickhead, and he's doing his thing, and Delta shows up, and then she has this killer match with Wrecking Ball, and I'm like, all right, I need to see what led to this. And we go back
in street clothes, by the way.
We go back and we see what led to it. And then
we did. Yeah, that was exactly what we did right after. We're like, okay, we need to go back and check out what happened before.
At the same time, for perspective purposes, at the same time this story's playing out, we had the old guard storyline with Nick Armstrong on his way out,
which was so good.
It's still playing.
Oh well, that's got a big match at the Fringe too.
Yes.
He's
huge.
Teaming up with Pereira.
And at the same time as that, we had the Dean Brady Red Shaw angle playing out with their trilogy.
That was really good too, wasn't it? That was an unexpected
dude. This is what we ran into. This is what we kind of stumbled into the middle of, with all of these stories kind of bubbling to the surface and coming to a head, with Delta coming out with the championship, and with Red Shaw and Brady thing going on, and with Katie Trey's story, and with the Purgatory story, and that was what it was for us. It was this tremendous place where all of these stories were just happening, like they existed. And there was so much built into it, and so many layers going on. We didn't know which place to look first. We're like, there's so much to dig into. We have to find out more.
But it was also I think all natural stories too. We try not to do too many there's a time and place, I guess, for the more sports entertainment-y side of things. But the RCW is really I don't know. We try to present it more like a real, sports kind of feel too, right? So all these contests, like you're talking about, are all over like honor or respect, proving who the better man is, that kind of stuff. And then it's like with the Brady thing. I remember the commentary I gave for that at the time when he won the title was like, yes, he won the title, but what kind of man is he because of the way he went about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the juice and the meat of the story comes from. It's like, yes, they've got this great match happening, but then it's the decisions that these characters make that determines sort of where they go from there. And I think
100%. When we were watching that angle play out, one of the things that we talked about was how is Delta going to feel watching her brother make the decisions that he's making? Is this going to become one of her problems? Is this something she's going to have to deal with? There's so many other parts to it, and that's part of the key of good storytelling is having all of these inlaid hooks, and have the fans having their own questions.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to Matt Hayter versus Jet Armstrong as well. That's main eventing, I think.
Anything Hayter's doing is interesting.
That's false.
Did you guys see? Yeah, that is. Did you see him versus Jet from Reanimated? That was off the chain. Like I was like really enjoying it. It was like an incredible match, and then obviously the interference at the end kind of spoiled things. But they've been really subtly building a nice story too that's been going on. And then you've also got at the same time the Chris Basso and Matt Hayter stuff, and they never touching. So there's a lot of layers to this kind of stuff that's going on. So the Fringe is a great season for like. We call it Fringe Mania because it is like our WrestleMania now. It used to be that our WrestleMania was Battle for Supremacy. Like almost every year,
That's what Katie said, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, right, yeah, all the big storylines converged at Battle for Supremacy. But now it's like some of them end there, but some of them start there. And then they go to the Fringe. And I think I want to give credit to Nick Armstrong for coming up with the name Fringe Mania. I think it was like on the Facebook page, like the internal Facebook page, when they post about like training, like, hey, there's training tonight, I'm pretty sure he was like, come on guys, we've only got 3 weeks to get in shape for Fringe Mania. And then it was like, that's kind of cool, that's a kind of cool name. And then I think the first year we only ran one show at the Fringe, and then we started running more and more, and then it was like, okay, well, let's just, to make it easy on the fans and easy on the commentators, let's just call it Fringe Mania, and then there's individual shows, because I don't know, I can't. If you put a gun to my head and said which show is Big Top Beatdown, which show is Dead to Rights, which show is Midnight Massacre and Super, I couldn't tell you which order they're in. I got enough things to worry about. So just calling it Fringe Mania.
There's a shitload of good wrestling called Fringe Mania, and it's legit. I feel like I'm gonna keep it real. I'm kind of like a kid in a candy store because this is the first year that I will see a Fringe Mania when these shows come out, and we'll be able to look at it for myself and know the stories that are going into them for the most part. Right. So it's like to me it's a big deal, and I'm looking forward.
Well, do you guys know about the Adelaide Fringe just generally? Do you sort of know what that is?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Because this might actually make you more excited. So, I think the Fringe started last week, last Friday, so the 16th or whatever. But it's essentially like a month-long festival that takes place in the city of Adelaide, where it's just, there's music acts, there's circus, there's stand-up performers, like any live entertainment you can think of. It's happening in Adelaide throughout the month of February, March, and you can go to all kinds of shows. There's this section of the city that they've kind of it's like the parklands. They've kind of fenced it off and turned it into a big sort of like music festival kind of space with all the tents. There's like carnival rides. There's food. There's all. It's just like a coming together of all the arts and entertainment from around Australia, around the world. So we get a lot of international acts coming down as well. Big time like comedians, big time musicians, and then people themselves can put their own shows into the Fringe too. So my partner, one of her work colleagues, does like pantomime, and he had a pantomime in the Fringe last year that we went to see in this like really, unique venue, because that's the other thing about the Fringe. All the venues are like super unique, temporary kind of like tents and like undercover enclosures and so it's just
built
it's
for
eclectic.
the production.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like the Fringe is like for me personally, when the Fringe is on, I'll go there and I might go see like 5 shows or something. I have no idea what I'm going to see. It could be a band playing. It could be like a stand-up comic. There was a great magic show I went to a few years ago. It's a lot of fun. So the idea that Riot City Wrestling is part of the Fringe for that month of like February, March, it makes RCW part of Adelaide in just a wider context. Because if you tell someone in Adelaide, if you say, "Oh yeah, I'm working the Fringe," they're like, "What? You've got a show in the Fringe?" It's a big deal. It's actually a big deal to have a show in the Fringe. So the first year that we had it, it was only one show, but it was this awesome show that had a big main event multi-man tag match that it blew the roof off the place, and there were more people in that tent than I'd ever seen come to a wrestling show in Adelaide, like in the entire time I'd seen wrestling. So it's a big deal to have a show in the Fringe, and it's quite the honor that RCW is always picked every year to keep having shows because we keep drawing.
So is it you have to apply for this, or how does that work if you're being picked? Like
they tap you on the shoulder if they want you to come back for the Fringe. So the first time you have to submit if you want to be in the Fringe. So you submit like a package of like, this is who we are, this is what our shows are, this is the kind of crowds we get, this is the sort of like venue we kind of need. So you kind of submit that to the Fringe organization committee like a year in advance, by the way, because they plan these shows out, these festivals.
Yeah, anything big like that's got to have massive amounts of logistical planning behind it.
So I think we submitted the first year, we submitted it like early 2019, and then we found out like October, like 6 months or so before the Fringe, that we had a show. And then it was like, from finding out that we had it to the show happening, it was just promote, figure out like what the card is going to look like, because a Fringe card is always going to be different to a main card, because you only get like an hour and a half of time in the tent, because there's always something on before you and there's always something on after you. So what you have to do is, and this happens, you get 15 or so minutes to set up the ring before like at the show.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
And we go crazy. All hands on deck. Everyone's setting it up. I'm busy setting all the cameras and stuff up. And then once the show's over, you have 15 minutes to pack it all down and get out of there before the next guys come in. It's crazy. But yeah, so the Fringe shows are always like an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. So you can't... Unfortunately, it's tough, and not everyone can get on those shows. But because we have 4, we can kind of spread it out over the show. So hopefully everyone gets a chance to appear on the Fringe, because it's... These aren't typically wrestling fans who come to these shows. It's just... No. Carnivals are different entities altogether.
That's where wrestling started.
To lots of people about
it
that.
started on the carny scene here in the States. So
It did.
You talk about a big throwback to just history in general for professional wrestling. I dig it. I'm looking forward to seeing what the production looks like on it. I know that the card's loaded.
You have to load the cards too. You have to get all of our usual fans to come as well. So, and it's great to... Well, actually, that's the other thing. If you get your typical fans to come, they bring everyone else up.
Yeah, because the other people that are at the event see all these other people convening in a place, and they're like, "Oh, that must be the spot to be at right now. We should go check that out."
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time. And like I remember there was like a year where it was like, I don't think we did a great advance on the ticket sales. Like it was okay, but like it was just the year coming out of COVID, so it was understandable. And we were running 3 Fringe events, that year. But the walk up was insane. Like I think we had like 150, 200 people like decide to buy their tickets like an hour or so before the show. It was crazy. That's what happens though when you're at the Fringe, because you've already got a captive audience of people, who'll come there in the morning and probably spend their entire day at the Fringe. And so they'll, look at the big board of things that are happening, and they're like, okay, well, it's, 11 o'clock now, and there's a show in like 15 minutes for wrestling. It's like $25, why not?
Man, this is nuts. I've learned so much already in just a short period of time, just talking to you, and I feel like I'm going to absorb more information, and I'm here for it. when we were talking about Delta, I wanted to circle back around to that and talk about the actual match with Mickey Fortune. I've watched that match on 4 different streams on my channels because I feel like that match is so good.
Such a good match.
The psychology is so good, and John said it best. It's like you're watching this wrestling. You're watching these two are going out here and they're killing it, and it cemented in my mind 2 things: that both Mickey Fortune and Delta are going places. It may be,
100%.
It may not be right now for Mickey, but it's going to be. I see it. John sees it.
I have no doubt. She's amazing. And to think, just to cut you off there briefly, 3 years ago, she had a really severe ankle injury, and I was like, "That's it. She's never coming back." And she did better than ever.
Yeah, I just think that's another piece of the bigger picture. When you look at the broad strokes of professional wrestling, hypothetically, if Delta gets picked up, right, that's another huge signing coming out of Australia, in whatever form or fashion, even if it's not right now with the WWE. She's on fucking radars. Let's just be fair. With Rhea Ripley coming through town and coming back and having her first match down there, and I think it was like 7 or 8 years. Since
her last, like when she left RCW, I think I saw someone on Twitter was saying.
I was one of the few guys that had went out and I saw some of her work as this was Demi. God, I forgot I'm
Demi Bennett.
That's it. I've watched back some of her stuff from Riot City as Demi on our live streams. Like it's the level of talent that is being churned out is nuts, and then you couple in the plug by Michael Cole,
how cool was that?
You got I just think that there's so many things that's bright for the future of Riot City Wrestling, and it's sick. There's so many different directions that the company can go, and I'm really pulling for you guys for Fringe Mania, and that you draw a record-breaking crowd. Like, to me, that would be the icing on the cake and the chef's kiss on essentially saying, hey, we're here, and we're not going anywhere. John, let me circle around to you. What do you got?
Well, I was just curious, because WWE was just there and they did just have the chamber there. Do you think that's going to have an impact on what Fringe does for you guys, especially with all of the new publicity and having so much stuff? Like, there's a lot of publicity generated around Riot City right now.
Big time. I think you're spot on, and I think if there's an announcement about Delta in the next couple of weeks, I think you'll see those shows sell out like that. But yeah, just more broadly speaking, Rhea Ripley, Demi was around. She was doing interviews, podcasts. Every time she was mentioning Riot City Wrestling, it was like, we just put something up on her socials where she was talking about how she, when she started with RCW, about how she came in at 16 and she was, always there beforehand and then afterwards, staying later than everyone else. That is Delta to a T as well, by the way. Like, I remember, I think she started training like 2019. And, it took her probably like 18 months before she started actually appearing on shows. And
she talked about that on Beers and Brawls with Redshaw.
Yeah. And I just remember the times where, it'd be like after training, late, me, Andrew Campon-Laguzio and Chris Basso and whoever else, maybe Matt Hader or someone else was there. And we'd just be sitting in the office, just talking, talking shit, just shooting the breeze until like the wee hours of the morning. And then she'd be there doing weights, and like we're sitting here drinking, talking, and just having a good time. And she's just out there busting her ass, and I was very like, early on, I was like, yeah, she's got this incredible work ethic. I haven't seen her wrestle yet, but just seeing the way she like put herself into like transforming her body into like what you guys see on the product, and then when she debuted, like I'll be honest, her first few matches weren't great. They weren't the best.
I mean, whose first few matches are great?
I know, right?
Really?
But you couldn't see like this pro wrestling superstar out of the gate. You saw like this big, strong woman, who looked the part but didn't quite have the moves down yet. But then I think in like 6 months or so, she was like better than half the roster. Her just the quickness of her progression. I've never seen anything like that. Maybe since Demi. I don't know. I wasn't around when Demi was here, but people do tell me that like the comparisons between the two, between Delta and Demi, is very similar.
Well, and I really chalk that up to the way you guys take training and the way that you guys represent what you're doing. There's a different feel. Like, we've talked to a few people from Riot City now, and there's this overwhelming understanding of the business and like what it takes to actually be successful at it. And like you said, you guys just had a tryout a few months ago, and so many of the students that came in were promising and stuck around. You had very few people fall off, and to see that happen is unheard of. You usually have the reverse effect. Like, you'll have 100 people and 95 of them will drop. And you'll have these last 5 that actually survived the training camp. And to see that you guys are coming off with more than that, and I really chalk that up to the way you develop your talent and the things that you're doing in training. I don't know that I've seen a lot of training academies go as in depth as I've seen you guys talk about, and the product that comes out of what you're doing is showing that off in spades. Like, you guys have a solid product, and to know that, I realistically, like, in my head, I want everybody to succeed in Riot City, and I'd love if everybody got called up. But really, I don't at all. I don't want to see that happen ever. I want to see you guys make a brand of your own, and you guys just run a territory down there and just pump talent from it. Because I think that the Bassos and the academy down there is really doing that already. And to see you guys getting the recognition that's coming your way right now is tremendous.
I would love for wrestling to be like my full-time job, you know. Obviously that's a long way from happening, and I think I think it's possible.
I don't know if it is as long away as you think it is. A lot of these things snowball. Like, this channel did not start, years and years ago. It started just a while ago, and this thing has progressed. And
you guys have done so well.
Well, we just like doing it, and it's fun for us. Yeah. But you guys have got so much work into it, and you guys have been around for so long, and just now you're starting to see this big push from the mainstream to give recognition to especially Riot City with everything going on right now.
Well, I work like a full-time job outside of wrestling, but I sometimes say that RCW, it's like I put the same hours into it, I think, as a second job, but it never feels like work. I think if it does start feeling like work, then that's the time to reassess, myself. But I go down to I'm going down this afternoon to the RCW gym to do some stuff, and it's like I'll go down there and there'll be people there and I'll have a great time talking to them because we're all like-minded people with the same goal in mind, and I think that helps immensely. Like, just having similar people around you, all building each other up, like it's very much a culture of you hear all these doom and gloom stories about bullying locker rooms and this. It could not be more.
I have not had any idea that was the way that it functions.
No, not
everything seems to be so positive and so motivational among your roster members and among the company in general. And to see that kind of product, it really comes through. The passion you guys have for the industry comes through in the product, and it really does.
Yeah, it's actually kind of insane about how like everyone. Okay, not everyone has to get on with everyone, but there's never any.
But you just do
arguments or blow-ups or anything. Yeah, it's a very agreeable group of people.
Which is rare,
my differences
and that's
of
what
opinion with some people in the past. But yeah,
that's so rare, and that's a piece of what makes Riot City so fucking beautiful.
I think you see that translated on the screen, don't you?
Yes,
you can see that everyone's in it. Yeah,
you do. Yeah, and it shows. Everything that we've seen Are we going to say that everything that we've seen has been perfect? No, there are mistakes that happen out there. Shit happens. Professional wrestling. I can't tell you how many
fuck up all the time.
Same. I can't tell
So
you
do
how many
we.
times I screwed the pooch when I was in the ring back in my heyday. Like
Just
shit
today,
happens.
shit.
But it's how you see the interactions and everybody that's involved, regardless if it's the A story or if it's the C, D, and E story. Everybody's out there doing their part, and everybody is out there trying to make the most out of the time that they're given, maximizing the minutes, essentially. We talk about
that's where people I think do get a bit. That's what I think where the tension does come. It's like if you are someone who's like in the second or third match and you're losing again, and you think you should be in the main events or something, but you don't assess that the fact that you're even on the card in the first place is a great privilege, I think. And I feel like, everyone has a role to play, and you need to understand that. It's like, it's like if you're at work, right? You go to work, and, it's like, okay, I'm not the boss, I'm not the CEO, but I should be. But then it's like, but no, you have your job, and if you want that job in the future, you have to show that you've got the skills, the experience, the work ethic to work towards it. Wrestling is no different, right? Everyone comes in, everyone starts with like not knowing anything, and then you start wrestling, you start learning, you do the ring crew, you start paying the dues or whatever they say, and then you get on the shows, and you're not going to get on pushed immediately. Look at Delta, right? Her real singles run only started like last year, really, like when Brady LTD broke up. Even she spent the better part of 2 years, in tag team stuff, in sort of like the women's division stuff. She wasn't getting the spotlight at that time, but she worked so hard for her. And then it just, it became the right thing to do. It became the logical thing to do. I'm not saying that there's anyone in RCW at the moment who has a problem with their place on the card. I think far from it. I think the privilege of being on a card, given how competitive the roster is, I think it's like you're just grateful to be booked sometimes.
Well, I think you guys do a good job getting the stories across the roster, too. I think everybody gets a good chunk of screen time, and they've all got something going on. And like we said earlier, when we first ran into Riot City, there were 4 or 5 major storylines going on that all drew us in. So it wasn't like any parts of the roster were being ignored for any other parts. There was always something, and everyone had something going on. And sometimes we'd have to skip a whole show to see another part of that story because there wasn't room on this show for that thing. But the next show it was there, and it was like it made us want to keep watching because we wanted to see those things unravel.
It's variety, isn't it? Variety is the spice of life, and having those different things. It's like my very good friend James Gray, who just won the Evolve title last weekend.
He did. Shout out.
He did. He's a very, very close, dear friend of mine, but he was off RCW shows for like a year, I think. Like, he pretty much didn't wrestle a single match, maybe a Rumble or something last year. And what he did, he stopped feeling sorry for himself. He went to Japan. He wrestled over there. He trained his ass off. He lost like 10 kilos. And guess what? He came back, and the opportunities, they came to him. And now he's been on like the last 2 shows. He's probably going to be on the Fringe or something, So, and he just won the Evolve title. So it's like that's the right way, I think, of going about it. It's like you can maybe feel sorry for yourself. It's like, woe is me. But I think what you guys said before was very, like at the start of this, about how just high end the production of Riot City is. I think the quality control we do now is quite different to how it used to be back in the day, because I think there were times where, there'd be like a rookie or someone who debuted, and like in 3 or 4 matches, they're wrestling like, in front of 500 people in like a 5-minute match, and it's like, it's okay, but it's like they probably could have done with more development time. There's a few guys I can think of, in the distant past who used to be like that. But nowadays, it's like, you really get your time to develop. We've got these Mean Streak Mayhems back. And like, the quality of guys we're pumping out now, like Vinny, Snacks, Kaitoa is another one who I didn't mention.
Kaitoa is doing great,
He is insane, right?
We were watching back.
It's like a Delta,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step in. When we were watching back the the last show, Kayatoa, we were talking about when we were watching the match. He qualified for the Key to the City ladder match. I was like, we were talking about it. I was like, I haven't seen a whole lot out of him. I've seen him in his matches, and he's really good. As the match is playing out, I guarantee you he's gonna win this. His style just fits with this ladder match concept. And sure as shit, he picks up the win. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he does, because to me, he's always been a part of that trio. This is a huge spot for him to step up and show everybody what he's capable of within Riot City and really claim a roster spot as a singles guy moving forward, right? Like, he has that opportunity.
Can I tell you a funny story about him, actually?
You sure can.
He's 17 years old. He just turned 17, right?
Yeah, real young kid, doing great
real young
work
kid.
too.
I reckon it might have been Fringe 2021 or 2022. So he was like 13 or 14, and it was after a show, and I was leaving the Fringe. I was walking out, and he was like out there, and like I think I was wearing the RCW shirt, and he recognized me, and he came up to me and Andrew, and he was telling us about his backyard wrestling company. He had a backyard wrestling fed that he posted on YouTube. And he's like, "Oh, can you subscribe to it?" And I showed him that I was like logged in with the RCW socials, so I was like, I'll subscribe to it, as RCW. I'll follow you on Instagram as RCW. And anyway, we're talking to him, and he was like, yeah, like I said, 13 or 14, so too young to wrestle at that time. And I was like, yeah, man, it'd be great, when you get a bit older, maybe you could try out. And he's like, yeah, I will. And then I remember when he showed up to a tryout, and then he got in. I was like, wait a second. Aren't you that little kid? I know
this kid.
Yeah, that I saw a few years ago outside the Fringe. He's like, yeah, I remember that. And then I checked. I'm like, yeah, that's you. That's your wrestling company, isn't it? He's like, yep, that's it. And I was like, wow. It was like this whole full circle. First of all, it made me feel really old seeing this little kid grown up now, and he was wrestling. But it was like, yeah, man, seeing him as a fan. And then, I had this conversation with him, and I'd never thought I'd see him again. And then he shows up, and I was training with us, and he's doing really well, and he's looking great. Like, his physique for someone of his age is unbelievable.
He is definitely going to be a threat in a few years when he fills out and gets into his grown-ass body. He is going to be a severe threat.
He's one of those layers of the foundation of the future for Riot City, in my opinion. I do think that he's got the talent.
17 years old. What were you guys doing when you were 17? I guarantee it wasn't wrestling and looking like that,
I was actually being trained at 17, but I but I did not have a chiseled body by any means.
I was triple lettering in sports in high school, so I was absolutely peak athlete.
Okay, you were. All right, I was. But maybe I'm projecting onto myself here, because when I was 17, I was mostly. What was I? I don't know. I was definitely not doing what he was doing. But
I was leading a swim team and a soccer team and a tennis team and doing all kinds of other things, getting ready to go to college.
Okay, well, there you go.
I was in the ring. Yeah, that's my career started at 17, and I think I ended it with injury at like 24, 25.
Wow! What company did you wrestle for?
It was a small promotion in Alabama. It was called GCW, and I'm not even sure if it's still around anymore. It's Global Championship Wrestling was the name of it.
Not Jeff Jarrett's company.
No. This was different. Absolutely not. I wish that would have been great, but no. This was obviously my promoter was definitely looking at other people and using the name. But it was fun. I had a great time while I was in the business. I told Katie Trey, I was like, you motherfucker are the one that I would dust my fucking boots out for and go and buy a new pair of tights and fly my ass to Australia to punch you in the face. That's how good Katie Trey is at his job as being a heel.
He has developed so much, like in the last few years. Like just talking about, we've been putting over guys who are like the new up and comers, but I think the development on some of the previous generation has been quite incredible. Like, we talked about James Gray earlier, like transforming himself. Katie Trey and Dean Brady are two other guys that came in around the same time. And if they're watching this, I'm sorry, I'm going to be brutally honest. I didn't think much of them. I really didn't. And I think they kind of didn't think much of themselves either, because look at, like, they were just on the shows, but they weren't doing much meaningful, and they hadn't really found themselves yet. And I think it took Kane Trey turning heel and then like developing out of, like I know you mentioned he was doing like the biting dog gimmick.
Yeah.
That was good, that was fine, but it only got him so far. And then it was him evolving to the next layer of what he's doing now that I think really took him up to that next level. Having that match with Hayter, developing his in-ring skills, because he had like some good matches, but it was mostly like 5 to 10 minute, nothing kind of middle of the card matches. But then he really developed a main event style, added more moves to his repertoire, started getting like more. His facials improved. He started getting more intense looking stuff. He did looked better. And then he became the champion, and then he really ran with that. And I have to give him a lot of credit for that, because he took the title and he ran with it and main evented a lot of shows, and he tried to do his own unique thing with it. And then Dean Brady, I thought, he was a guy that had a lot of success as like the leader of this team called the Millennials, which was like a heel faction we had of the sort of younger guys. But then he turned babyface in like 2019, and he didn't really like have much going on for himself. He was kind of doing the Millennials gimmick, but as a face, and it just didn't work. And then obviously he tried some other stuff. He wanted to do a gimmick inspired by like Fat Thor from Endgame, if you remember that thing. He tried to do that for a bit. Some sort of Orange Cassidy type gimmick as well, which it was good, but it just wasn't fleshed out enough, and I don't think it had enough time to develop. And then his sister came in, he started teaming with her, and then that's where he really started taking off. And then I think his recent series with Red Shaw, and then his heel turn and joining the Old Guard. This is honestly the best I've ever seen out of him. Like, he is a more complete wrestler now than I've ever seen from him.
No, 100%. He is definitely the total package coming into there, and I think this last year, especially in his character development, has really done a number for getting him over and setting him up to be in the position that he's in.
Oh yeah. And this is all timing out now, because he's I think just turned 30. I think Katie Trey's just turned 30. James Gray's late 20s. So these are the guys who like 10 years ago or whatever, they were the Kaitoas, they were the Snackses, they were the Vinnies. But now they're that next generation, and they have to step up too, I think, because, as like the Havocs and the Bassos kind of get older and sort of fade away a little bit or reduce their in-ring time, we're going to have to call upon the more established guys, the veteran guys, to come in. And then even after that, you've got your Down Unders and your Red Shores, who are kind of a little bit after Katie Trey and James Gray and Dean Brady, So it's all sort of there in sort of generations, and I think it's good to see everyone developing, because this is not a time to be complacent, because as you guys pointed out, the eyes of the world, I think, are on Adelaide or Australia, Riot City Wrestling. The Fringe is coming up. You need to be on your A game.
Listen,
really do.
Of all the companies that are down in Australia, and keep in mind, like, Riot City opened us up to everything that you've mentioned earlier, ACW, PWSA, and a couple of others. Of all the companies that were down there was only one that got a mention. Only one.
That's right.
Right. I'm not, and again, I'm not trying to sound like a dick or a douchebag and say that Riot City's better than, because really and truly, it's about the whole country, essentially. Like, the eyes of the world are on you guys, and you're 100% correct when you say that people can't be complacent. Talent, you can't be complacent. Now is the time, and you've got to strike. You talk about how Dean Brady just turned 30 and Katie Trey just turned 30. But you just made me feel like Father Time. I'm in my 40s at this, early 40s at this point. And it's like, damn, if they're 30 and they're the vets, right? Like, they really haven't even kicked into their prime yet. Like, that's super fucking scary if they're, where they've come. If these guys are this good now, and if you got to rely on it in the future, man, there's not a whole lot that Riot City can accomplish. I think John said it best.
It's interesting.
Go ahead.
That we're talking about that, like the 30-year-old thing. I just think it's like in Australian wrestling, the amount of like shows that I think are full of like guys. Typically, this is what you get, right? you get the old guys who love it and run the companies and have been around forever, and keep, they're the reason the companies exist. Like, I don't want to say the Bassos are old, but like in terms of relativity, they're in their late 30s now. And then you get a lot of youngsters. And then what happens is people, when they get into their like late 20s, if they haven't been signed or picked up by someone, they start to assess, why am I doing this? And then what's the purpose of this? And then they this is what happens. They just disappear. One day someone's there, the next day they're gone. You never see them again. You never hear from them again. And then you don't realize that until 6 months
life
later.
Happens. And they aren't making it, and they aren't paying the bills on it yet. And they're like, well, I need to focus on actually getting a career. Yeah,
that's exactly it. And then that's why you don't see a lot of companies that have guys who are in their, like, 30s, mid-30s anymore. It's a lot of the really young guys and a lot of the older guys. Mm-hmm. And the older guys already have pretty good jobs or whatever. And they're running the companies out of...
They've already established themselves.
Yeah, that's right. And you have to kind of... I feel like to run a wrestling company, you kind of have to have your life together in some form or another. Right, if you're running a wrestling company, if you've got a training school, you kind of have to have your life a bit together.
A little bit.
A little bit together. Well, I know the work that the Bastards put in. Like, it's insane. Like, the hours they sacrifice with their families to be, running RCW. It's a lot of work.
Well, yeah, you just said earlier, there's 5 nights of training, essentially, with a different focus and a different trainer every night. And then you've got the fact that at this point, again, eyes of the world, it's just one of those situations, and it's a fucking phenomenal position to be in as a company, because based on what we have seen, we know that you're going to rise to the occasion and knock it out of the park. Like, it's just not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Like, the proof is already in the pudding with all of the work that has gone into this 18-plus year company. It's not...
Yeah. I'm incredibly privileged to have the spot I do in RCW, because, I feel like I contribute, not in the ring, but I feel like I contribute in a different way of actually being able to say, this is us, this is the product. I send it out to the world, you guys
I told
like,
you had us hooked from the intro video to the Collider show. Like, the very intro video, the first thing we saw was your work.
Oh, well, I didn't make the intro video. That was Jimmy C who made the intro video.
Well, his work, your production, the talent in the ring, everything that went into it hooked us from show one.
Jimmy C is a superstar, by the way. I cannot. If you could you got to get him on your podcast at some time. He is the man when it comes to
you tell him that we're looking for him, and he can come and talk to us.
I will.
We're definitely interested.
He can be a bit of a dick on the shows, he's got that whole thing going with Jed Armstrong, but he's, like, as a talent, and as someone who has a passion for Riot City Wrestling, because he was there, like, a good while before I was there, he just, like, I can't speak more highly of him. He does all the match graphics is him, he does, like, he did the intro to the shows, like, I put it all together, I edit the shows and everything, but
They're fire.
He does a lot of work. He's
all the moving pieces are perfectly aligned, and you guys are firing on all cylinders for sure.
It's a team. It's a team thing. I think I couldn't do it by myself. We all need each other. And this is not to sound like a gatekeeper or anything, but I see new companies start up all the time with like one person or two people, and like, we want to run a wrestling company. I don't think they realize the amount of work that goes into running a wrestling company. It's like everyone wants to be the booker, everyone wants to be SmackDown versus Raw general manager, but the actual that's like that much of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole thing is way more than that, and it's so much work, and you have to really love it, I think, to stick around.
Absolutely, it's a mistress. Professional wrestling is a mistress. It always is. It always will be. It's. I wish that I didn't get hurt when I got hurt, and as I would probably still be doing it today. I love it so much, and with our deal is like, our situation's like simple. When we come across Riot City, right, we see the Katie Trays, the Deltas, the Mickey Fortunes, the Old Guards, the Purgatory. We see all these guys, the Bradys, the Vinnies, which shout out to Vinny and Snacks for a fucking killer tag match that they had on the last show. I got a chance to plug that one and put it in. I thought that was I did not see that coming. I did not. I kind of.
Oh, when they won?
Yeah, I kind of saw the match playing out, and I was like, well, wait a minute now. This is very possible. The double pin was very nice. It's good to see the storyline that's being wrapped around the Emerald Crown, although makes me question where's Redshaw standing in all this, because I ain't seen no announcement from my boy yet, and I'm getting a little impatient outside of right.
You want to see him have his rematch for the Emerald Crown?
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I think Redshaw needs to start looking at the Grand Championship.
I
think
do
it's
too.
time.
I do too.
I think it's time.
I think there's a lot that's to be said for upcoming stuff. You guys are just in a really good spot, and I would be, if I'm Riot City Wrestling and if I'm attached to the product right now, you guys should be really proud of what you're doing and understanding that it's not just resonating in your area, it's resonating elsewhere too, and
all over the place.
If we feel this way, and the fans of our channel feel this way, because our fans are very honest. If it sucks, they're going to tell us it sucks. And I assure you, there have been several shows that we've watched that have been like, "What? Why are we watching this?" It's a very honest market on our side of the equation. We don't give a shit about notoriety. We don't care about being any of that bullshit. We care about the product, and we care about professional wrestling and pushing the product. Because if you have good wrestling, it's good wrestling regardless of where you're at. And we've been fortunate enough on this journey to come across Riot City, come across other really good programs, Rev Pro, and some higher end indie stuff, even down to like over here in the States, we found some like Deep South Wrestling and different concepts over in with the UK. The only place that we haven't hit yet, as far as indie is concerned, if I'm not mistaken, is Japan. And we're looking into that just to see if we can find a full Japanese.
I can give you some recommendations there.
I appreciate that.
I love Japan. I've been like 6 times over there to see Wrestle Kingdom.
You was at Wrestle Kingdom this past year, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I was.
Yeah.
I was at Noah. I was at Wrestle Kingdom, but I always go, except for COVID, I always try to go that first week of January just to see all the other shows over there. My favorite, I keep saying this because I like to give them some notoriety, some press. Big Japan Wrestling is my favorite live experience I've ever had. Like, they are just they're this like sort of death match, but they also have like a strong division. So like they have like regular wrestling. It's not just death match wrestling. But I went to a show of theirs. I think it was like January 2018, and they did this death match, like Royal Rumble, like death match type match, and everyone had like their own unique weapon that they came out with. And the guy comes out with like a fishing rod, and he literally like hooks someone's mouth with the hook on the fishing thing and reels it in. Someone comes out with like this big like almost like video game hammer that has like spikes on one end, and he hits it in the, and just through that it was so much fun, just like all the unique stuff they were doing. And then sort of getting into deathmatch and seeing how good death matches work, because there is a different psychology to working a deathmatch. But in Japan, because it's so structured and because the training is so well done, these death matches over here are the best death matches you'll see anywhere in Japan. Like, they're insanely good. Like, they're the way like they'll work it, and then someone will hit their finisher, and you're like, oh, that's it, that's the end of the match. But they kick out because it's a death match, right?
Yep,
you need to
it's a death match.
Death match finisher, So it was a lot of fun. So I highly recommend them. Another one of my very good friends who I'd met for the first time last time, I was there, Chris Weiss and 01. They do a lot of really good stuff too.
Yes.
I think
I've heard good things about 01.
Yeah, I think they just started a deal with Wrestle Universe, so they can get their stuff on Wrestle Universe now. So, but yeah, like Japan, a great place to go. I love it. I love Wrestle Kingdom. I love going to see all the indies. Even as painful as the match was, I was there to see Ibushi versus Marufuji, which was a real sad match. But being in person for it, I was like, well, I guess I could say I was there for it.
You could say I was there. Where were you on that night? I was in the audience.
And then, of course, how can I not mention my good my partner, Izzy Shaw. She wrestled in Kobe as well, which was great. So I got to go watch her wrestle over there too.
Nice, awesome. Izzy. Why is that for me? I think I'm following her on socials.
She is an RCW wrestler. She hasn't appeared really consistently for a while. She was the women's champion in Riot City Wrestling, actually. But she's been sort of off shows for like the better part of a year. But she was at the Rumble recently. You would have seen her at the Riot City Rumble.
I think that's where that sounds
saw her
familiar
there,
from.
but I think I've seen her in some other stuff. Because again, I tell you, I went back and watched some other stuff, and one of the programs I do is what I call Women's Wrestling Takeover, where I just find different women's matches over the course of years, right? And I think I've seen some other stuff from Izzy. Just I can't remember what particular show it fell on. I feel like I've seen some stuff. When you said that she was champion, that's where my head went to. I feel like I've seen one of her title matches. Does she have any title matches with Mickey Fortune?
Yes, she beat Mickey Fortune. Oh no, it wasn't a title match, but it was like a singles match. And then she beat her in a singles match.
I feel like I saw and watched that back on one of those shows. I feel like that's where I saw them. So
yeah, that wasn't a bad match at all. But yeah, she wrestled. Actually, I shouldn't say much. She's my fiance, actually. Mm-hmm. So we're planning a wedding at some point. But yeah, so she had a great opportunity to wrestle in Japan. So while we were over there, just on a wrestling holiday, she wrestled for this company called Fuck, which is Fighting Ultimate Crazy Kings is their name.
Okay.
So their acronym is FUCK. So it was a lot of fun. It was so much fun.
Was it fucking fun?
It was like in this... It was fucking fun. It was in Kobe, which is sort of near Osaka. And it was in this bar that is like a wrestling bar, which has a ring set up all the time in it. And it's got like wrestling memorabilia all over the wall. It's like this... kind of cool neon sort of underground place, and yeah, she wrestled there. It was awesome. It was so much fun.
Oh man, that sounds like the environment for magic to happen as far as wrestling is concerned. If you ask me.
It was the best. That was like our last night before we left to come back to Australia as well. So it was just like a nice way to end the trip.
Yeah. The only question about that: did she pick up the W?
She did.
Hey,
she got the pin.
That's definitely the way to end the trip.
Undefeated in Japan. So next time we go, we'll see what happens.
That's
yeah, it was so much. It was a great time this last trip.
Add that to the rate. I'm undefeated over here, guys. Just so you know.
Oh yeah. And now she's in ACW. She's with the Firm, which is this faction they've got there. They just won the tag titles. In ACW.
Did I hear you correctly? When did you say that you're doing ACW shows too? You're producing those behind the scenes.
Yeah. Just their bigger ones, the ones they do in the.
So the one I think you said, are you working on the one where Red Shaw picks up the belt?
Yes, I'm editing that as we speak.
Okay. Well, whenever that one gets done and it gets released, can you shoot me that link via DM? Because I'm going to watch that one back. I'm going to surprise the big man. Well, not much.
It was Red Shaw and Mr. Cliff, and that was Mr. Cliff's first big main event. And I said afterwards to the guys who run ACW, I said, because Mr. Cliff, I've known Mr. Cliff since he was a fan of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I first met him at a party where he was invited to it because he was a fan and he was friends with the wrestler. It was Brandon Black. Yeah, he's been retired a couple of years now, but it was his friend who was a fan, and I met him at his party. I'm like, oh yeah, he's a cool dude. And then I found out he was training at Riot City, and I was like, oh, okay, awesome. We got he wants to train. That's awesome. And yeah, he really put the hard yards. He developed an awesome character. Like the Mr. Cliff character is one of our best, I think. You could put him out there and he always gets a reaction. He's always hilarious.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. We react to him every time he pops out of the curtain. We're like, oh, damn it.
He probably
thinks his detention, that thing.
He probably thinks I hate him if he watches back our shows, but that just means you're doing it right, brother. So,
that's right.
I don't hate it. I appreciate it, but I will punch you in the face.
A main event spot in front of like 200 people. I thought that was great. I thought, they could have had another match main event. They could have had Matt Hayter main event, because he was on that show. But they put the title on Mr. Cliff and they went with him in the main event. I was so thankful that they did that because if anyone deserves it, he deserves it. It was a great show. If you get a chance to see it, and I hope I'm not sure how they're going to put it up because I don't upload the shows. I just edit them and then send them off to ACW. But Matt Hayter versus Down Under on that show is one of the funniest matches I've ever seen. It was so over the top, everything you could imagine, ref bumps and And like he had Banjo Powers and Vinny with him, and they're doing this like I don't even know what they're doing, like a Zoolander gimmick or something.
Yeah.
It was
No, I've seen that all over Twitter. The promotion for that is hilarious.
yeah, it was just weird. It's great, but you know that match was just like Hayter was over the top. He was doing. I think my brother and I were like, have you ever seen that Nicolas Cage movie Vampire's Kiss?
Yes.
Yeah, he was basically Nicolas Cage in Vampire's Kiss, just completely off the rails. Like he's doing the eyes and everything, and it's just, yeah, that was a lot of fun. I you know, that's the thing. I could talk about this shit for hours. I love the guys involved. Like, you know, I've developed really strong, you know, friendships with these guys over the years. I just love seeing what they can do, and just, you know, it's a lot of fun. It's so much fun. The local scene down here.
It's just getting started. It's truly just getting started.
I hope so. I hope that's right.
I know this. John, do you have anything else for Mr. Angus? I don't want to eat up his entire.
Oh, I could pick his brain forever.
Hey, well, maybe we'll do a part 2 to this after the Fringe or later in the year or something.
I would be more than happy to.
Oh, we would love to swing around and catch up with you guys after the big events, just to see like the fallout of everything and how it all affected you guys and what was going on. Like that's really a thing I'm interested in, is like what happens with you guys at this point, because this is really a central point in like what you guys have going on, and this is a big opportunity for not just the stars but for the company in general. So whatever that is from this point on is a new thing. So to see that being your horizon, your perspective, like I'm interested in what happens from this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've everything's been building to the Fringe, right? So once we've kind of got through those 4 shows, it'll be a completely new situation, like new matchups, new stories. I think new encounters. Very exciting. I think that reset after the Fringe kind of sets us up for the rest of the year. So I'm super excited for that. Yeah, let's get together again. But this has been a fantastic time, guys. I've really enjoyed it.
Hey, we enjoy the fact that you enjoyed the fact that we could sit down and talk to you about Riot City Wrestling and your adventures thus far. And I come out of all these things just learning a little bit more, and the more I learn about the company, the more I fall a little bit deeper in love with what's going on down there. It's just one of those things that it's rare to see. You know, everyone's working collectively. The eye is on the prize, and just know that and pass it along to everybody that's down that way. We see it. And not only do we see it, like everybody else is starting to see it too. I think at this point, I'm calling it now. At some point in time, we will see Rhea Ripley in Delta. It will be a one-on-one.
Oh, 100%.
Oh,
and if they
God.
don't do it in Australia, they're fucking stupid for it, because they could probably
They need
put
to do
that.
that could sell
I mean,
out
they could put
anywhere.
that on anywhere, and it would be a banger.
I-
But
We have a 100,000 seat venue here in Melbourne. Taylor Swift was just there. She did 100,000 people.
there
I
you go.
reckon if you put that match there, that could draw 100,000 people.
I 100% agree. Give it a little
Guarantee
bit of
it.
time. I mean, just there's a lot, and like I try not to bug Redshaw and Katie Trey. You know, I send them some DMs and follow up with them, and just kind of pick up stuff. But like I asked Redshaw straight up, I was like, listen, I know that they're coming, and I know that they're doing a camp. Are you trying to get in on it? Like, what's your? Have you thought about it? What's that look like? You know, how does that? And he's just couldn't get into a whole lot about it. I don't know if he made the camp or if it was an invite only. But
I don't think he went to Perth, but I know he's a hungry guy, and I think his first goal is to get on a World Series wrestling show. I think that would be goal number 1. I think he could do it too, and I think he's got tremendous upside. I think as big as he is and as popular as he is, I think he's underrated, quite frankly.
I 100% agree.
I think he's very underrated. He's one of the better big men we have in this country, and it's just he's come a long way from when he started. He was a referee when he came in, and then he
we
became.
talked to him
Probably,
about that.
well, yeah, he probably mentioned all this, right? Yeah, so then he became the wrestler after that. And look, he had some it took him a while to get going. He was a bit of your typical kind of robotic big man, but then he got more agile. He added more. I keep saying. it's no coincidence, by the way. It's no coincidence that the wrestlers, their improvement comes when they add more to their repertoire. They do more and more every time, and you start to see new things from them. And then they put their old stuff back in, and it's like, oh, cool. I liked it when he did that. That's where the development comes from. Just quickly, Havoc, who's an absolute legend here. I talked to him about this stuff, and he's like, yeah, I've got maybe like a dozen moves I do, but just so like it's kind of fresh every time. I'll do like maybe these 6 in this match, and then I'll do these 6 in this match, and then I'll take them out and I'll swap them around, and I'll always keep it fresh. I won't do the exact same stuff every time, because one, people like seeing new stuff, but they also like seeing the old stuff. They like seeing the stuff that they can connect with, but they also like being surprised. Because I think as soon as a wrestling fan can kind of come and say, all right, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like, I know, it's like the John Cena 5 moves of Doom, right? People kind of like, they get over it after you do it enough times. So that's, I think, and because even in Adelaide, or any indie, right, it's mostly going to be the same people every time that come to the shows. So you kind of have to keep it fresh for them as well. So yeah, it's I think Red Shaw's developed a lot, but yeah, look, we'll talk more in the coming months. I think a lot of our guys are going to develop a great deal over this Fringe time. They're going to get a lot of exposure to a lot of different fans, and they're going to have to really step their game up. And I'm so excited for that.
And there's no doubt this is the the Riot City Wrestling ride has been almost a 2-decade thing, and it's about to get a lot prettier. It's about the grass is going to be a lot greener, if you will, and it's really and truly it's you. We've said it to Katie, we've said it to Red Show. We'll say it to you. Riot City's about. I mean, if you haven't popped yet, the company's about to, and
it's my bar for indies as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and
I feel it, guys. I'm with you. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make that happen too. So.
You've been doing a great job. So you guys all have. And like I said, as when I look for shows to put on the channel and I'm looking for indies, I'm always with Paige. I'm like, well, this isn't Riot City, but this will do. Or this is a good contender for. Or and if it holds up to the bar that Riot City is set, then we want to put it in our rotation and make sure that we're watching for the full shows when they come out. And guaranteed that Riot City is the show for us to put out premiere. When those things drop, we are looking at them the next Monday. We will push our whole schedule over, and we have been doing so for months.
Yeah,
that motivates me too. Hearing that really motivates me, because I always think to myself, it's like, all right, why am I putting myself under such strict deadlines to get these shows out? And then it's like, well, people watch them and they get really great reception. So it's like hearing this stuff. It keeps me going too, I think that's it's always good to have something to keep you going.
It's
I mean, you don't have to push for Fridays because we do our shows on Monday, but like, the last time I have to wait, you could scooch your deadline back a couple days and drop on Sunday, and that would be okay by me.
Yeah.
Give yourself a little more time. You're fine.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. You are so much knowledge and of what you're doing, and I, now knowing you're editing the stuff on our channel too. I do a lot of that on the backside, so I feel your pain in some instances of the whole process. But at the end of the day, there's nothing more gratifying than knowing that your work is definitely appreciated. And here we are. I say professional wrestling has a way of bringing people together. We're on two, separate sides of the fucking world, and we're talking about something that you are very hands-on in, and a product that you're very hands-on in. And John and I both worked in the industry and from different avenues, and we can appreciate different things. I was never on the table; I was in the ring, but John was on the table, and that's a piece of what we're trying to do. Everybody's job's important. Everybody's role's important. We started doing this podcast. It wasn't necessarily about getting just the in-ring talent, like the guys that are painting the pictures on the table, the camera operators, all this stuff.
Which we get all kind of rolled in one with you, so that's a bonus.
Yeah.
Bonus.
Well done, man. editing, I've done camera, I've done commentary, I've done.
It's all
Yeah,
it's all thankless. A lot of people just see the product in the ring, and the product that to get you the product in the ring is something that is equally important. And for that, we appreciate you, and we thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
And I
Thank you
personally
so much.
appreciate your time today for sure. To sit around and talk about everything that's going on down there, because you guys are doing some fucking awesome stuff.
No, that's great. And I just literally got a message from Carmine Laguzio because it's 11:15 in the morning, and I've just spent almost 2 hours talking wrestling with you guys, and now I'm gonna go watch 2 more hours of wrestling because I'm gonna watch AEW Collision with him. So
Nice.
Well,
and then I'm going down to RCW later today. So you can see how this consumes my
Day
life.
well spent.
well, Mr.
Thank you guys
Dacey,
so much.
go ahead and tell us what you got. Anything you want to say to our people before we close it out?
Oh yeah. Well, you can obviously subscribe to the Riot City Wrestling YouTube channel. It's on YouTube, Riot City Wrestling. We've got as well. That's where our shows get posted, our most recent shows. But I put a lot of work into the website as well and the RCW Vault. So if you're curious about learning more about Riot City Wrestling, you want to see where we started, some of our old shows, go to the Riot City Wrestling Vault, which is I think riotcitywrestling.com/RCW Vault. Yeah, it'll be down below.
Mm-hmm.
The merchandise store as well. I don't have the link for that, but it's on the website.
It's down below.
The new stuff like this, which is the newer T-shirt, but we also have like a vintage site as well, which has our old merchandise too, which is very cool. It's like recreations of the original like T-shirts that we used to sell back in 2006. Yeah, but no, that's and then if you want to follow me on Twitter. You've got my Twitter. It's Angus Dacey.
Right there on the screen.
I'll send it to you guys. You can plug it down below. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I've got. You can find us there. You can find Riot City Wrestling on all social media. But yeah, check us out. It's you will not regret it.
Like, follow, subscribe. You will become fans. I assure you. John, go ahead and take us home, my man.
Well, guys and gals, as you heard him say, all of the links down below. You can find the merch, the Riot City Wrestling Vault, the Riot City Twitters. You can see down below his name, his @ You can get on with him on Twitter too. There's so much good stuff going on in Australia right now, and Riot City for us is like the epicenter of the storm. And I have not been disappointed in a single show that we've seen. It's been amazing. But you guys out there, if you haven't already, and if you're followers of the channel, I know you have, but if you aren't, and you're new here, and you're just catching this for the first time, go down below, drop those savage elbows right on the ring bell so you never miss a thing we got going on behind the curtain, beyond the bell, anywhere that there's wrestling. We love sharing our passion for the industry with you. And as always, we love each and every one of your faces. We'll see you again next time.